Save the Semantics, episode 181. It is June 25th, 2022. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. A lot's happened this week. There's a good amount of stuff to talk about. I wanted to start off by touching upon Roe v. Wade and it was, the fact that it was overturned. To be honest, I don't I don't know I don't really know what I can really say that hasn't been said better by other people. It really just comes down to, I think it's really easy to kind of feel a ton of despair and disillusionment, especially after these past 3 years, and then after this decision. I think it feels really, I don't know, it feels kind of hopeless in some ways, I think. But I don't want to give in to that mentality. I think it's very easy to kind of see this despair and shit like that online, and really just kind of feed into it. And I just think it doesn't help to feel that way. It doesn't help. It doesn't help women. It doesn't help people in general to just kind of feed into that. I think it is perfectly, of course, it's, completely justified to feel angry and sad and just all of these things. I just think that you just can't give up and give in to these kinds of things, because I just don't think it leads to any sort of action or change. And this is kind of what I tell myself. I am the least affected in this situation. I'm not this doesn't, of course it affects me in a sense, but my livelihood is not at stake because of this decision and that sort of thing. So I try to take that into account, put myself in other people's shoes and try to understand it from that perspective, and just do the best that I can to support whatever there is that is going on. I think that it's just just kind of when you're on Twitter, or when I'm on Twitter and stuff like that, I see some threads about oh, this this should have happened, I don't know, Hillary should have been elected because of the popular vote, and now we're in this position. Or Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have retired instead of staying as a judge, because then her death led to a vacancy, which led to Trump appointing these far right judges, and now leading up to this time and this position that we're in right now. But I just think it doesn't really, of course it's important to understand how we got to this point and kind of reflect on those things, but I just don't think it's particularly useful to kind of wallow in those kinds of things, other than just getting an understanding of the how we got to this position and everything like that. So I try not to, I think I've gotten a lot better about how, when it comes to these kinds of moments, and how I compose myself and everything like that, and how I sort of deal with it, and thinking about the things that I can do. I think I've gotten better at sort of reacting to these kinds of events that have happened in the last few years, and that just comes with learning more about the situation, learning about who and where the people that are most affected, and then just kind of doing you know, doing things like donating and that sort of thing. I think those are steps that I can take as someone who is fortunate enough to be living in a state like California that um, upholds, abortion laws and has recently passed the bills to make it a safe haven for people that need abortions. So that's kind of something that I see myself continuing to do. And I hope that others can, I guess, take initiative to, do the most they can by supporting people and providing funds and resources in the best way possible. And that's kind of how I feel in my position as someone who's out of those states that are gonna have abortion regulations and whatnot. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I think it's I just don't. And again, I it is far less of a I'm far less impacted than women just across the board, so I can't fully understand the position that they're in, but I just want to do the best I can to kind of support organizations and people and that sort of thing. So I'm going to be, just keeping my eye out on those things and donating and doing stuff like that whenever I can. And just not to kind of give into those things and vote and all that shit, you know what I mean? And just kind of stay updated without really, like, I think it's just so, I think it is so easy to feel like shit, everything is just against us in that sense, but I just, like, I mean, just looking at the polls and just kind of the surveys and whatnot, and majority people want abortion to be legal across the board. So, like, it shouldn't, but I just think that collectively, like, we should feel like this is something that we should stick together on, you know what I mean? I'm of course, like, I'm not in the thick of it again. I'm not in the thick of it, and I don't, I'm not going to experience these things as I won't experience pregnancy or anything like that, but I don't want to kind of give into those things. And I think that's kind of like the approach that a lot of people, not a lot, but I've seen a decent amount of people that are kind of like looking at this perspective in this way. And I think that's really hopeful instead of kind of like wallowing in this sort of thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a really tough and really awful situation. It's just not something that I don't want to give into, kind of like giving up on these things, you know what I mean? Among other things, gun law shit and whatnot, racism. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of a across the board sort of thing, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's I just kind of keeping, like, not being like, understanding that it's an awful situation, not blindly like optimistic or whatever, but just being like, hopeful about a lot of things is a kind of how I want to approach these things, you know what I mean? So yeah, I just kind of wanted to get that out of my system. I haven't really expressed these things to other people. I'm sure other people feel very much the same way. I just kind of want to put, I've donated to, I think it's like a general abortion fund earlier this week. And I would like to try to maybe donate to other organizations as well coming up, and just kind of keeping track of things, and understanding where people are at and stuff like that. And so that's kind of that's something I feel like I can do, and hopefully provide some aid in that regard. Yeah. So it's tough. It's tough to like transition to like, yeah, let's talk about Xenoblade. Yeah, I mean it's tough, but it's just something that I wanted to just get off my chest. I've been listening to, not consistently listening to, but I've listened to a couple of albums this week that came out, which include Westside Boogie's More Black Superheroes and Logic's Vinyl Days, and they were both good stuff. I think that Westside Boogie's project was a little more concentrated and more like thematically concise. It's a much shorter project. I really enjoyed that, but I think there's a lot of things to talk about with there's a lot of good things to talk about with Vinyl Days as well. But I saw the track listing for Vinyl Days, and like I was put off, as I'm sure other listeners were. It was like 30 fucking tracks. I'm like, damn, dude, like this is more of like a mixtape of like a bunch of like loose songs than anything, right? That's kind of how I felt like before really delving into it. And it definitely had much more of a mixtape feel than an album feel. I feel like the songs, or I guess like the project in itself, didn't really have this like cohesive theme or narrative like some of his other projects, some of his other albums in the past. But I think that there are some themes that kind of carry on, where he very much gives a lot of respect and appreciation for the artists that came before him, and talking about how he's handled criticism in the past from critics, and audience members and the like, how just kind of I don't know, very much wearing his influences on his sleeve, but giving a lot of respect in that regard to his contemporaries and whatnot. So I think this is kind of where his strengths lie, where he's not, unfortunately, like where he's tried to do like other forms of music, like especially like that Supermarket project, which was pretty awful. He tried to do something there. It just didn't really work out, and I just don't feel like he has like an ear to do like other music, like like a Red Hot Chili Peppers like rock song. He had something like that on that project, which was something for sure. And also I don't know, like just kind of sticking to his strengths. I think he's not, and I don't mean this in any disrespect by any means. I think that just kind of sticking to what he's good at, what he's shown that he's good at, has led to good music in that regard, right? Sticking to kind of sort of that like boom bap, jazz rap kind of sound that he's gone for, like in his like past mixtapes, his older albums and that sort of thing. So I think when he does sort of maintain that sound, it proves to be successful in some regards, and I think that kind of shone through with this album. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I didn't feel, despite the length or despite the quantity of songs, it didn't feel like it was like too much or over, like it was like a overwhelming amount of songs or anything like that. I think it was it worked to its benefit. So I'm expecting this is probably something that where I might, just kind of have this song kind of in the background while I work and that sort of thing. It's a solid project. I really enjoyed it. So I'm yeah, hopefully I don't know how much. I've never been like the biggest fan of Logic, but I've followed him since high school, so I do keep track of what he puts out and everything like that, and I enjoy his music. So I don't have very high expectations for him, really, like in terms of like what kind of music he's gonna put out next. But it's if he continues to kind of do stuff like this, and I guess continue to kind of stick to his strengths, I think I'm gonna be I'm just gonna be keeping up and listening, because he has good songs and albums here and there. It's just the ones that are the ones that are bad really stick out, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people kind of use that to discredit him, and I feel like that's not really all that fair to him, because he has, I don't know, he's a really solid, and he can be a really good rapper and that sort of thing. I think sometimes his lyricism is a bit shaky, and it's not super, he's very much just rhyming for the sake of rhyming without really delving too much into the content of his lyrics. But that doesn't necessarily take away my enjoyment of his sound and how he performs and whatnot. So yeah, solid album. And then I also listened to More Black Superheroes by Westside Boogie, which I thought was really well done. His last album, let's take a look. His last album he put out, which was a while back, a few years ago, I really enjoyed that one as well. I think this one is better in some regards. In 2019 he released Everything's for Sale, which I enjoyed. I think that my sort of criticism with this album is that there are a lot more slower songs than there are kind of the rapidy rap songs that you would kind of that I sort of would want on I guess like an album, because I think he does like a really good job of sort of balancing like singing kind of the R&B, more R&B heavy songs with the rap songs. But I think he did a better job on the newest project as opposed to his last one. I think there are a lot of things that he discusses on this album that feel more mature. I don't know if that's necessarily true, because like he does reflect a lot on he reflected a lot on his previous albums and whatnot. He talks about kind of his relationship with women. He talks about his position in the rap industry, and his how his career is going, and his kind of talking about where he is now versus where he was before, and kind of how of course he's experienced a lot of changes, acquiring some level of wealth, and then but holding on to a lot of the the habits that he picked up during his growth. Not really a new theme by any means for like a rap artist, but I don't know. I think he does a really good job on this album, and I really enjoyed it, and it's probably something I'm gonna revisit throughout the next week or so, or however long I feel like listening to this album. So yeah, really nice. I quite enjoyed it. So good stuff. Lupe Fiasco dropped a new album, and I haven't listened to it yet. I might listen to it later, either today, this weekend, or next week. So I'm excited for that. I'll talk about it, the next time I record. So just keeping putting a tab on that one. But I'm really excited to listen to Lupe's new album. It's only 10 tracks, so much shorter than Drogas Waves. So I'm interested to seeing kind of what kind of concepts he tackles this time around, because I talked about this, I feel like, pretty recently, just about that album, and kind of like how I still haven't, even after it's been like a few years since that album's been released, like just sort of the themes and ideas, and sort of like these allusions, references to religion and kind of history that he makes, and just kind of delving into that. There's still a lot I feel like there's still like a good amount to uncover with that album. And I don't know, based on the length of this new album, which is, I think, drill music in Zion, it might not be as in depth, but I'm still expecting some crazy stuff. Him delving into some crazy stuff. So I'm excited to listen to that. Yeah. So good stuff. Good stuff coming out. Still waiting on JID. I know he released a single, which was solid, last week, and he said that Forever Story's coming soon. But he also said that, I feel like, when Surround Sound came out. So it's been a while, man. Like I'm just waiting at this point. Like I'm not. I'm just gonna be patiently waiting for that album to come out. I think it's been, I feel like Surround Sound came out in like February, I feel like, so it's already been a long time since. And I feel, isn't that technically gonna be a single off of the album? So and I feel like I've already listened that song to death, so hopefully by the time the album finally drops, I'm not going to be too sick of it. It's still a good song. Like, if it comes up like in my shuffle on Spotify, I'll usually listen to it. So yeah, keeping an eye out for that. I sort of went back on my promise that I made last week in regards to the Xenoblade 3 trailer, or the Xenoblade 3 Direct that happened on this past Wednesday. I ended up watching the trailer part of the Direct instead of the whole thing. I got like 10 seconds into, like, because they showed the trailer, which is like 2.5 minutes. And then they kind of started to get into the Direct, which was like, another like 20 plus minutes or so. And I watched like 10-20 seconds of the Direct itself, and I was like, I kind of bailed out. I was like, okay, they seem to be revealing a bit about like the initial part of the story, and I was like, okay, I think I'm good. I think I'm gonna pass up on that. The trailer, I think it did a really good job of sort of, keeping all of these things semi out of context. Like, you can get ideas and bits and pieces of where the story might go and who these characters are and what they represent and whatnot, but I don't really know, like I have no idea like how the story is gonna like progress, you know what I mean? So, and I don't really know who most of the characters are. Like, of course I know who the main characters are, but the rest I don't really know, and I kind of want to keep myself in the dark on those things. And I think, like, once the Direct started to kind of talk about like what's gonna happen in like the first part of the game, I was like, I kind of want to just leave that for myself, you know what I mean? There's gonna be like the what's the word? Is it the initial like conflict, or like the initial like trigger for the story. Um, so I want to just like save myself before it gets to that point. Like I understand like where this story is gonna lead just based on the trailers alone. So I kind of want to just keep it that way. I reading on the comments, I have an idea of what to expect from the battle system, but very, very vaguely. So I'm kind of keeping myself in the dark on those as well. And then I know there's like there's all these like different mechanics. There's like heroes and that sort of thing. Sounds cool. I'll find out once I play the game and how that goes. So I've limited myself to just seeing the third trailer instead, and that's probably gonna be it for me until I actually play the game. I thought I don't know, it's what an emotional trailer though. My goodness. Like I feel like even if you're not a fan, like I think that gets you like hyped in some way. You're like, holy shit, what the fuck is happening in this story? I mean, I'm feeling that way. It has this incredibly dark tone to it, very much darker than the first two games. I mean the first game there's a lot of death and shit too, but it just feels there's like a lot more going on in this third game, where you're like, wow, this is a very dark and just kind of menacing world and whatnot, you know what I mean? Very unforgiving kind of world. And so I'm excited to kind of see how that story goes. And the second game, it only really gets dark until like the end of the game. The last like few chapters, it kind of delves into much more darker territory, but even then it's like not it's not really like the centerpiece. Like certain characters have incredibly dark and tragic backstories, but like it's not necessarily front and center, you know what I mean? Like it's not something that you can kind of like, while you're playing the game itself, like it's not something that you're like constantly thinking about. It's not something that you're seeing constantly of, you know what I mean? Like we just kind of get these in the later cutscenes and whatnot. So I don't know. I think it seems like with this third game, like it's being very upfront about like, hey, this is where we're going with this story. This is the world that we kind of live in. And just kind of like uncovering everything. Oh man, I'm so excited. I was so excited that I just ended up buying the first game, the definitive edition, and I'm playing through it right now. And man, I forgot how fun the game is. I haven't touched I have the Wii version, and it's been a very long time since I've played it. So just like the quality of life shit is incredible. Like, oh my god, just like it's so easy to just like go through these menus and everything like that. Like and doing the quests is so much easier and like fun than what it used to be in the Wii version. They have, they give you the icons of like if you need to collect items or monsters that you need to kill. It just gives the player so much more ease in that process. Like I really enjoy it. Like I just want to keep playing it, honestly. I already know, I've played the game already, and I've recently watched like some, few, playthroughs of the definitive edition. So I kind of know, I know how the story goes and everything like that. So I'm much more kind of diving back into the world myself and doing all the quests and, rediscovering kind of the world of, you know, the Bionis and the Mechonis and everything like that. And that's been a lot of fun, and just I don't know, I get a lot of satisfaction completing quests and whatnot, and just, you know, getting a good handle on like the combat and whatnot. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it's something that I'm gonna be playing, you know. I'm gonna try to beat it before the third game comes out. I think I can. I'm just considering the pace that I'm going at right now. I feel like I could probably get through it. So, yeah, it's been good. It's been a good time playing through that. Just kind of, and I don't know. I think I talked about this last time. I don't know if I'm gonna play the second game through again, because that's a lot. But I don't know. Maybe if I have time. I don't know. I'm not gonna pressure myself to be like, to get through this game like, immediately. I really want to sit through 3 once it comes out, because I think there's a lot to really get into. So I'm really excited. This is like my most anticipated thing for this year, other than that JID album. But it's been so long since he like announced it, that it's sort of like, you know, I don't want to say that my anticipation for it has like faltered, but it's definitely you know, it's not as strong as it was. But yeah, I'm really excited. This is basically just going to be a Xenoblade Xeno like podcast for the next like few months probably. So look forward to that. And yeah, that's probably going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. This has been Save the Semantics. Signing off.